Coach, we'll start with this. The open week, bye week this past week, what was the main point of emphasis for you guys?
We did a good bit of fundamental work. When I say fundamental work, there's just some position-specific things. Things like where your eyes need to be, the way your stance is, your first step, using your hands, and then really trying to install your game plan for this week especially. But maybe look at a couple of other things, at least last week during that bye week.
I was going to ask, how much preparation, how much were you guys talking about the Commander-in-Chief's trophy and beating Army?
You know what really where the discussion is, how do you execute better? It's like there was a great coach here named Bob Noblet. He used to say all the time, execution of aggressive fundamentals. And, I think that probably comes into play in every game, certainly anytime you play an academy game too.
I was wondering, you're being a baseball guy, did you ever go to Globe Life Park and watch Rangers game at all?
Never did. I can remember being at old Texas Rangers Arlington Stadium, though, in the middle of August, and it'd be 8:30 at night, and they'd flash the temp up, and it'd start with a 1. Now, those were days when it was, who would that have been, Gonzalez and Palmeiro, and some pretty good guys during those years.
The reason I ask is you're playing technically in a baseball stadium still. How cool is that, knowing that the significance of it?
It's a different arena, if you will. It's not a basketball arena, but certainly a different environment. It was super, super neat when we did it 2 years ago in Phoenix, and the people there in Arlington and Texas, they've done a sensational job in all areas just to make sure this is quality experience for everybody. Certainly the players, for each of the institutions, for the fans, the whole bit. So, you look forward to getting down there and seeing what it's all about.
I know winning the CIC is one of the main goals you have every single year, but to know it's just so close this year, can you feel that around the locker room right now and the guys?
Well, our guys, like I said a little bit earlier, it's just, the operation, the focus on the execution part of it. But maybe you do get where I'll tell you what is really helpful about a week like this is just the amount of time that you really can do with your offense and your defense together. And not entirely, but I think anytime you face there are some similarities there that you're able to go a good bit of OVD. And I think it's good for your team, not only for this game, but I think there's some things that are built in a little bit of camaraderie and interaction that helps you down the road, too.
Coach, I'm curious from your perspective how the game sort of came together, how the two sides came to meet.
Yeah, I think I've said, it'd be neat just to see, what can happen one time, right? Where each team relinquishes a home game and you go play and, even going forward, you wonder kind of, vision-wise what would be pretty cool, I think, is if you always played the second Saturday in September, which we did this year, and how much truly is brought in terms of the attention to our service members, and then play on the second Saturday in November just because of the proximity to Veterans Day. And that's, down the road. When is that? Is that 5 years from now? Is that 10 years from now? To be able to do that, I think we'd find some, even more neat features that are a part of what our service members do that would be awesome to share.
The makeup of the fans down there in Texas, what are your thoughts? Big Army base, obviously. You expect to see a lot of Falcons fans at the stadium on Saturday?
Yes, sir. I do. Yeah.
Has there been a discussion about that? It is technically a home game for you guys. Playing.
It is. It'll be, what is pretty neat, I think, both ways. You look at the number of service members that are in that area, and just right up the road 110 miles is Shepherd Air Force Base. Down in San Antonio, you have Lackland Air Force Base, Randolph Air Force Base. You go to Del Rio Air Force Base. We have so many of our graduates where they go to pilot training. You go to Altus Air Force Base. There in Oklahoma, you go up to Vance Air Force Base, where a bunch of them are going to pilot training, just west of Tulsa, about an hour, and a good number of Army bases too. Fort Hood down in Killeen, Fort Sill and Lawton, and which I think is incredible. You know, the more that we can, if there's an event, there's an outing where a good number of our service members are able to go there, and you provide them a little bit of joy for one day, makes it even better.
And it's not often that you go a whole class without winning the CIC trophy, especially in your tenure. Has there been any discussion amongst the seniors that, hey, this is our last chance?
Well, I think you got one more chance to play a game, a service academy game, right? And you know, and how much those do take on, I think, a different tone in their own entity. Not that every game's not, because it is, but golly, I mean, just, you know, you get a chance to play against somebody that, who knows, you know, in 5 years from now or 15 years from now, you might actually be co-located somewhere that may not be within the United States either.
Because of that, the tone, what are your emotions like, game aside, just knowing the types of players that will be on the field when you're in a service academy game preparing for? What are your emotions like before and after those games? Are they different?
Well, what does take to the soul is these are young men, and both schools, young men, young women, that have made a commitment. I serve, you know, and I think that I don't, you know, in life, I mean, when you think about you do something with all your heart, you're saying, I'm committed. They're committed. And I don't know if there's, whether you're a part of a team, if it's with you and your spouse, if it's with your coworkers, when you know, hey, I'm all in and he's all in and he's all in, golly, we got a chance to do something that equates to more than just 1 + 1.
Logistically, when you're playing in a stadium, a unique setting, how much prep do you guys have to do? Where's the clock? Where's the play clock? All those things where you have to scout to make sure, or is it all, do they try to get in a similar spot?
Yeah, it's a great question, because what we do, that's an awesome question, because we rely upon so much the shot clock in our approach. And now it's different in every stadium. You know, it's not always either right up underneath the right upright or the left upright. Sometimes it's up on the scoreboard. Sometimes it's over there by the left corner of the end zone going one way, and the other way it might be over in the right corner. Just all the time. We do point that out initially, you know, we first get to a stadium. But it'll be interesting to see where it's located for this one. Yes, sir. It's not like the NBA where it's always on top of the scoreboard.
Right. Habits are hard to break in that, right?
Absolutely.
How much you guys did such a great job defensively, specifically against Navy. I think it was 1.1 yards per rush. I mean, unbelievable job. Are there any takeaways from that game plan, that prep, that can be applied to this, or are they totally different?
Some, and yet I think there are enough differences that you do put together a different game plan, if that answers the question.
When you talk about OVD, you know, especially in this series, it's been pretty low scoring over the past few years. Is that a big product of that, especially playing later in the year when the offense has had a chance to see the defense and vice versa?
I don't know, because we played earlier in the year in a game that was like this, and there were 26 points scored. So I don't know if it's necessarily the time of the year. I do think I think part of it, there aren't as many possessions, you know, when you play a game, just naturally. And there weren't the other night even against San Diego State either. You know, when you look at the total number of offensive plays, the other night it might have been, I'm trying to think just the number of plays you graded on each side of the ball. It might have been 120 scrimmage snaps. And there's a good number of times in these games where it may not be even higher than that.
And Jeff Monken said today that all of his quarterbacks are practicing. Is there a difference in skill set enough that you would prepare, you know, quite a bit differently depending on who might be?
I wouldn't say quite a bit differently. I mean, I think, you know, they're all going to run their offense. Each one does have maybe a little bit of variation in terms of, you know, some things that they do. And, you know, I think the other part that's happened is, this year they've been effective throwing the football, really effective throwing the football. So I think those are some things, at least in practice, that we got to make sure we're spot on.
And then seeing that Wake Forest film, I mean, obviously you can't become Wake Forest in 2 weeks, but you are multiple enough. Are there some elements to that game that you've been picking out and saying, let's exploit this or that?
We clearly we've looked at that film, from every angle that you can get, and to see maybe what you can pull, and then maybe what wouldn't fit.
And then what about your quarterbacks? Who has been practicing for you?
We had everybody practice yesterday. Meaning, when I say everybody, we had Zeke, we had Warren practice, we had Zach practice. All of our guys were able to practice yesterday, and I anticipate they will today too.
Okay. And is Brad Roberts 100%, or as much of 100% as you can be at this point?
I think so.
Okay. And Frank Sartori the other day was talking about, his team is also young compared to the competition because of the rules. He's trying to use that because he says there's a lot more players in junior hockey now that would have otherwise already been freshmen somewhere. So he's trying to utilize that as an advantage to pull from a larger pool. Are you
You're saying
able?
in recruiting?
Yes, in recruiting. Yeah, some of the guys, because there was basically a clogged system because not as many people left. And so some of the guys coming up, the recruits, he sees a larger pool to pull from. Do you see that at all? Is that
So
an
you're saying
advantage?
like high school recruits or
Yes.
junior
In your
hockey
case, they would be
recruits,
high school.
or both?
In your
for
case,
him?
they would be high school. That
Oh, I
the spots
gotcha.
are not there because everybody else is getting grad transfers and whatnot, and guys aren't leaving.
I mean, I guess if I'm understanding right, you're saying most years you offer 20 scholarships, and in previous years, if it was 20 scholarships, it went mostly to, I'm just making maybe 3 junior college kids and 17 high school kids, where now what may end up happening is maybe you're looking at four less scholarships that you're maybe allocating towards guys that may not be from one of those pools. Is that what you're kind of saying here?
I guess so. I guess just in general, yeah. And then you can do that
I
math.
really don't. The thing that does kind of come into play here in recruiting is we still have to go through, the initializers and what those are. We have to see a transcript. There has to be a pathway to have a qualifying test score. Here, that's what we use. And then doing all of our background check on the young person, which deep down I tell you I love, just in the sense that it does establish the standards, and then clearly you have to do a medical check here just because there are some things involved there. Are there a few less guys maybe signing out of high school with other schools? I think probably. You're saying because some schools may see at least some of their scholarships available for some of the movement that occurs. I think so, but I don't think it's significant.
And this will be the second time you've had a home game in the Dallas area in the past 5-6 years. So you can bring recruits into that game. Did you see any sort of advantage from the last time that you would try to carry?
That's an interesting question, because I think, they are able to come to the game, yet you have zero interaction. You aren't allowed to have any interaction with the kid nor the parent or, anybody that's involved. So, and you're always thinking about the recruiting part of it, just because you see some of the value in it 4 years later, I think 3 years later, maybe the nearest. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. I do, probably one of the things that you are a little bit given up is being able to bring a kid to your campus, because whenever we play an academy game, you always get a really, really good turnout, and being able to share your campus with them. And yet at the same time, it is an area now where we recruit the whole country. There is not even close, nobody that's more national than we are. The fewest number of guys in our time zone, and really how prevalent it is. We're looking out here right now at the divide, just how prevalent our roster is east of the divide. And so that's the central time zone, eastern time zone, with probably, well, it's more kids from that state than anywhere else. So, I think there definitely can be some positives.
Biggest thing you guys worked on during the bye week, off week. What was the main message out of the senior group?
Just regrouping, taking a loss and growing from it. I think our biggest thing last game was the mistakes we made. So just trying to smooth out those mistakes, work on turnovers, work on missed tackles, just things like that.
Coach said a lot of it was one-on-ones or offense versus defense, and you guys are able to work on that camaraderie. Did you see that, or when you guys did that, did you see a benefit out of that?
I think so. I think it was just good to grow. I think this bye week definitely helped us in a way that we need, especially midway through the season. Learning that we're a good team, that when we don't make mistakes, we win games. When we make mistakes, we lose games. So being able to have that bye week, especially when it was, I think it definitely helped us.
CIC this week. This is probably the number one thing you guys have circled on the goal sheet from the beginning of the year. What's the message right now heading into the weekend and knowing that everything that you guys want to accomplish is still right ahead of you?
It's the focus. That goes back to the losses we took this season. It's don't let those bring us down. It's a whole new week, and there's a championship to be won this week. So definitely focus, mentality, physicality, violent, and just go out there and try to win a game.
I know you played at a baseball stadium in Phoenix 2 years ago, but playing in another one in Texas, Globe Life Park in Texas, how cool is that?
It's crazy. It's just a different environment. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's just a different environment. Especially, we know we have a lot of people on the team from Texas, a lot of people on the team from who are just different areas around there. So it's going to be good to have a lot of families come out, a lot of the old players come out who are stationed around there and stationed all around the country. So it's going to be a big game, and it's just very exciting.
You haven't won a CIC in your time here, am I right on that?
I have not.
So is that a big sticking point this week, knowing that you want to end up with the trophy at least one time?
For sure. That's definitely a big one for me. That's something that you come here, you want all 4 of the years you're here. So not getting it once and now getting another shot to go get it is definitely big for us.
I'm curious what you're planning on doing when you're not on the field. There's a pep rally happening the day before. Is there any discussion about any off-field activities for you guys?
Do you mean when we get to Texas?
When you get to Texas.
I'm not really sure what they have planned for us. All I'm worried about is trying to win that trophy.
As a senior, as Jake kind of mentioned, has there been a discussion amongst you guys? The CIC doesn't stay far from Falcon Stadium really at all, especially since it's birth here. Has there been a discussion like, this is our last chance? We got.
For sure. It's definitely something we talk about as seniors and just talking to the other classes as well. Just something that not only for the seniors but as for everybody, just to bring it back here. Not having it for 4 years definitely hurt, or for 3 years, but hopefully getting it this year definitely hurts. But just starting off the tradition to get the younger guys ready to get it and hold on to it as well.
When you came to Air Force and you were ready to play football, did you think about these special games, playing September 11th against Navy, playing a big game like this, the Commanders Classic? Was this one of the reasons you wanted to be?
Actually, before I came, I didn't really realize how big of a thing it was for the academy. I didn't really know much about the Service Academy. And then you come here and you start learning about it and you start playing in the games and you just learn more and more about it. It definitely starts to mean more and more, especially 9/11 games, playing at neutral sites in Texas, big stadium, and just the rivalry between the service academies is definitely big.
What are the feelings for your team for Army? And are they any different than Navy? I mean, is there any more bad blood or animosity or just any sort of different feeling?
I don't think so. I think regardless when we play those teams, we just want to go out there and win.
And having the bye week before Army, I always talk to other teams when they're preparing for your offense and how hard it is for them to simulate it in practice and all that. You guys get a Service Academy offense, and you had a bye week to do it too. Like, how much value is there in that and getting?
It's definitely big, especially since we only play 2 other teams that run the option offense. So trying to regroup and focus more on the triple option versus the conventional stuff we usually see throughout the season. I think that was the biggest thing we had to do coming back into the bye week, just reshape our minds going into that, knowing it's a lot more we got to look at, a lot more to focus on, just things like that.
And how easy is it for you to slip into that mode? What you have to recognize with your eyes and everything like that.
I think it still takes a couple of days for everybody. Just like I said, going from conventional to triple option is just kind of a tough thing to do. Just a lot of moving parts and pieces that you got to be aware of and stuff you got to focus on. So I think it takes a couple of days for everybody, but I think I'm ready to go.
And is this one because a lot of guys are from Texas, are tickets hard to come by among teammates? Is everybody swapping them? And do you have people coming in?
Oh, for sure. People have been asking for tickets since the summer, actually. So it's definitely hard to get tickets. I got a lot of family coming out to this game, too. we figured out a way to get tickets. But yeah, it's definitely a hard way to get tickets too.
And given the significance of trying to get this trophy for the last time for you guys, what are your thoughts on playing away from home? You know, this could have been a home game at Falcon Stadium, and now it's a neutral site. Like, any thoughts on the difficulty that adds?
I think it's kind of tough. Of course, you want to play in front of the home crowd, especially a game like this, going for a trophy like this. Of course, you want to play at home. It doesn't change the significance of the game or the significance of what we're going for. So, yeah, we want to play at home, but at the end of the day, we're going for the same thing.
Well, I think one of the big questions is, how are you doing? Because you only had those 7 carries against San Diego State. Are you fine? Was there some sort of medical issue that caused that?
I feel pretty good. I'm fine. Definitely got a little banged up, but I'm fine. I feel really good, especially with having those 7 carries. Really refreshed now. So.
Yeah. And then was the bye week good timing then for you if you were dealing with something?
Yeah, the bye week was really good timing. I wasn't really dealing with anything, but nothing too major. Just when you get late in the season, everybody gets a little banged up, and I feel good now.
Yeah. Do you feel totally refreshed at this point now?
Completely.
And now, the thoughts on the Commander-in-Chief's trophy. And we talked to a lot of seniors, and there's a lot of, not desperation, but they really want to get that. As a junior, what is your feeling on that? Do you want it just as bad, or do you want it for them?
I want it for them, and I want it, I would say, just as bad. Obviously, it hasn't been to Air Force in a while, so especially with our chances from last year, and we weren't able to capitalize on it, so I'm really expecting us to be able to capitalize on it this year.
And offensively, when you look at Army, obviously they're coming off a game they gave up 70 points. What does that do to the mentality? I mean, is there a risk in getting too overexcited about that, or how do you view any of that?
It's hard to tell because any service academy game is completely different than most games, and we're kind of just more worried about ourselves, just making sure we can get all our keys and be prepared to beat them on the offensive side.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on playing in Dallas or in Arlington in a baseball stadium and all of that?
I think it's really cool. Just to be able to have that kind of set up for the game that we're about to play is pretty sweet, the Commander Classic.
And you played in that game last year at West Point, right?
Yes, sir.
What was that like? I mean, obviously it's an extremely low scoring game. You know, what was the action like on the field for you?
It was pretty tough. I think we only had like 40 plays of offense or something really low. It was a tough game, but we just didn't make plays that I knew we could have, and I think it'll be definitely different this year.
And is this going to almost feel like a bowl game? You know, going to a neutral site and, you know, having the festivities around the game?
Somewhat. I think it's really cool that we're playing in Texas, especially because I know there's been a lot of promotions going on, and I think it's a really cool environment to be in.
Do you take anything from that Navy game and apply it to an Army game at all?
Not particularly. Both teams are somewhat the same and somewhat different in their own ways. Obviously, they're really good at defending the triple option, so you can kind of have keys, but our defense is really good at that, so just being able to practice against our defense really helps us with that too.
Coming off of a loss and then having the bye week, does that stick with the team this past week and wanting to get back to the winning ways?
I think so. I mean, I think it was definitely hard on some of us. It was a really tough loss against a really good team, and props to San Diego State. They defended the run very well. But I think we're re-energized and ready to go get a win.
Is that the word of the week, re-energized?
You could say that.
To go deeper into what Brett asked you about practice this past week, Coach said you guys did a lot of one-on-ones, offense versus defense and stuff like that. Do you feel like that would help in your preparation a little bit, just knowing that, hey, we're going against a triple option team and we're already facing a defense that's used to you guys?
Yes, sir. Our defense and Army's defense, they see triple options so much that they're a lot better than most teams. And I think just to prepare and know what we're going to see, our defense gives a really good look.
I know this was a goal right off the bat at the beginning of the season. Knowing that the goal is right there and attainable is just, what's the feeling in that locker room knowing it's that close?
It's pretty sweet, but obviously we don't want to get too crazy about it. Kind of just stick to our game plan and just execute. We don't want too much hype. Just kind of focus on the game and just like another game.
How does Army or even Navy week change based on, from week to week, playing just maybe a Mountain West opponent? Right?
Just kind of the environment. Everybody in the team is really focused. You come out there, there's no messing around. It gets pretty intense, but at the same time, you kind of have to step back sometimes. Just not get too overexcited and just prepare like any other game.
Is that what's under the senior stress? Like, hey, take a breath every once in a while.
Sometimes, but it's all for good cause.
Now going to Arlington and being all the festivities, anything that off the field, I don't even know how much they've told you about what you guys are doing, but there's a pep rally, there's a boxing match later that night. Anything not football related you're interested in seeing?
I didn't even know about that stuff, but it sounds pretty cool to me. So, boxing match should be fun.